What's up guys, this is TheKephas, I am legally blind, and today I'm going to tell you about my first experience getting a job. And this is a really long story, so bear with me. I've actually told part of this story before in another video. In that video, I talked about my involvement with a local work rehabilitation program for people who are disabled. Due to my continued involvement with that program, I chose to take down the video, because my remarks in it were very critical, albeit honest. For logistical purposes, I have chosen to re-upload that video, because this video is going to pick up where that video left off. Because those of you who watch my videos deserve to know the truth about my experiences going through life as a visually impaired person. And hopefully this will help explain why I've been absent on YouTube for quite some time now. And for that, I do apologize. While there are many visually impaired and blind people who have great jobs, the majority of people with visual disabilities are unemployed. This statistic is confirmed by the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission. You can find this information on their website. And based on what I've been through over the past couple years of my life, I can understand why this is. So after being in this work rehabilitation program for a couple years, going through hoop after hoop and getting frustrated to the points where I was about to call it quits, an opportunity came for me to join this program where I become an entrepreneur to start my own vending business. I could either run vending machines or run a cafeteria sponsored by the government in a government location. This seemed like a really cool opportunity. I liked the idea of managing vending machines, and so I went for it. And eventually I was given the opportunity to go observe some operations and learn what it was like. My first impressions in the program were very positive. I was scheduled to meet with a vending machine operator who ran at a few locations, including some rest stops and some inner city areas. And the guy that I was job shadowing was super nice, really encouraging, and he made the vending business really appeal to me. Even though I was really only there to observe, he actually allowed me to get involved and work alongside him. And I took to the vending machine business really well. I enjoyed the straightforward work, but the complexity of keeping track of what customers wanted from a vending machine, budgeting, maintaining inventory, all the factors that go into the business, I really enjoyed, and I really felt like I could do it really well. It was a truly wholesome experience, and honestly, if things had continued on this way in the program, the outcome might have been very different. Unfortunately, this was the last really positive experience I had in the program. My second observation was scheduled with an operator running a cafeteria, and the program allows each operator to choose the type of work they want to be involved with. And I had been very clear that I wanted to work in the vending machine business, and I did not want anything to do with cafeteria work. But I was told that I had to observe both fields of work, so I went along with it. But one thing was very clear. I was being heavy-handedly pushed towards cafeteria work by the higher-ups, a point we will get back to later. So I spent 1 week observing in this cafeteria, and the only thing that it did was reinforce to me that I had no desire to work in food service whatsoever. The operator, who was visually impaired, worked the register, and he had 2 employees, 1 cook and 1 general assistant. One day, the employees did not show up for work. They were both sick. So he was there, and I was observing, and he looked like a lost puppy. Like, he had no idea what he was going to do to make any money that day, and I kind of felt bad for him, so I volunteered to pitch in and help out. If he had food to sell, food that was prepped, I could at least, distribute it to the customers. So he went along with it, and I was allowed to work that day. It was a nightmare. I'm just going to tell you, if you've ever worked in food service, you know. Like, food service customers are the real-life equivalent of YouTube commenters, no offense, but people are just mean and awful. On the plus side, I was working in a military base, which was really awesome, so people were a lot nicer. There were regulars, people were a little bit aware of what was going on, so they were really respectful of me and what I was trying to do by helping out, and they were very encouraging. But I had no idea what I was doing. I had never done anything like this before, so I was completely inexperienced, and it was very stressful. At the end of the day, though, I was really glad that I did it because I felt really good about, helping somebody else out. It's the right thing to do. When somebody's in need, you help them out, and I felt good about that as a person. But I was really, really sure of the fact that I had no desire whatsoever to work in open food after this experience. That was a fact. So I finished out the week observing the cafeteria, and then I waited for my program coordinator to initiate my training. 2 months go by and I don't hear anything. And then one day out of the blue, I get a call from my caseworker, and she tells me that she wants to talk to me about a job opportunity, which really confused me because I'm about to begin training for this vending machine program stuff. And she's like, well, it's actually in the program. It's your old friend, the guy that you observed and helped out at the cafeteria. He just took over a new location and he needs some new employees. Why don't you go help him out? Number one, I don't want to work in food service. Number two, I don't have any experience in food service. Number three, I don't know how I'm going to get there because it's not anywhere close to home. So no thanks. Well, it's just temporary, and you have to do an internship anyways to get into the program, and this will count towards that. And I'll send a job coach with you to help you get there, and it's only for a little while. Will you do it? Okay, fine, I'll do it. That's basically how that conversation went. I had to get this internship out of the way anyways, and it was nice because I got to help out the guy who was cool enough to let me come observe his cafeteria for a week. So I went along with it. After all, it was only temporary, right? So the first day comes and my job coach picks me up. We drive to the location. It's inner city, but it's an office building, which means that most of the customers are going to be employees, and that means they're probably going to be pretty nice. And that was pretty much true. I was led to believe that I was there to run the register since I had no experience cooking food for people and all that kind of stuff. Well, when I got there, the guy that I was supposed to be helping was nowhere to be found, the actual operator. And there was a manager there who basically stuck me behind the counter and then disappeared. I was there left to run the whole thing by myself. They were aware that I had no experience and that I had a vision problem. They did not seem to care at all, and it was a disaster that first day. Here I am, visually impaired, can't see hardly anything, never been here before, I don't know where anything is, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm left alone behind the counter. Income customers wanting food and service, and I have no idea what to do. So I had to figure out the register on the fly. I handed out any grab-and-go items I could. I poured people's coffee, got people drinks. That's basically all I could do. Luckily, I wasn't entirely alone. My job coach was there, and even though they were only there to coach me, that's all they were supposed to do, they actually pitched in because they had to. I mean, it wasn't a one-person job. It was a big cafeteria. If it hadn't been for them, I really would have been lost. So luckily, I did have some help. On top of that, the customers were really cool. I mean, all I could do was explain to them the situation, and they were really nice about it. They were really understanding. And that was the first day. It was a nightmare. Second day rolls around, and no joke, I'm faced with the exact same situation. Other employees, nowhere to be found. Just me and my job coach behind the counter. In come the customers. But this time, to my surprise, the customers actually began to instruct and coach me on how to prep their food. It all started with this lady who wanted some scrambled eggs. Now, I don't like eggs, so I've never fried an egg or done anything with eggs. She showed me where the griddle was, she showed me where the eggs were, and she told me exactly what to do step by step. And she was really patient. She told me when to take the eggs off the griddle. This lady taught me how to make scrambled eggs, and I served them to her. And I don't know if this was true, but after she was done eating, she came back up and told me those were the best scrambled eggs I've ever had, and I'm going to come back tomorrow for some more. And it made me feel really good. Other customers actually followed suit and were very patient with me. It was one of the most heartwarming experiences of my life. So in spite of a few no-showing employees who couldn't be bothered to do their job, with the help of a job coach and the kindness of a handful of customers, I actually started to pick up how to work in a cafeteria. And that's how things went for about 3 weeks until my job coach left. And then things took a disastrous turn. I was sent to a sister location ran by the same operator immediately when my job coach left, which was really suspicious. So this nice cafeteria in this nice office building with all the nice customers has now been replaced by this hole-in-the-wall cafe located in the bottom floor of a government building open to the general public. This was an inner-city building which housed probation officers and public defenders. Yeah, you can imagine the type of customers that I was going to get now. On top of that, my job coach was gone, so I had to figure out how I was going to get to work. Unfortunately, my only option was public transit, and you have to understand that I don't live in an inner city. I live in a small town about 20 minutes away from the city that I was working in. That's 20 minutes if you're driving, mind you, which translates to about 2 hours on the bus. Yeah, 2 hours to get from my house to work on the bus, and another 2 hours to get back home, which added up is a round trip of 4 hours.
4 hours.
I spent 4 hours every day on the bus to go to work. And keep in mind, I'm only working part-time, so I was only working for 4 hours, which meant that I was actually spending as much time getting to work and getting back home as I was spending actually working. It was inconceivable. So I came to work every day, and I was supposed to have this assistant manager there to help me, and when I get there, they would take off and be gone most of the time I was there. So I was, again, by myself. The place was always understocked, it was understaffed, it was undersupplied, there were hardly any utensils to work with. The best I could do was pour coffee every day and give people cold deli sandwiches. That's about all I did when I worked there. But it was pretty awful because when I did get customers, it was a horrible experience. Most of the time they would leave angry at me or in general, and it just didn't feel very good. So here I am working this horrible part-time job, basically by myself, with a ridiculously long commute, getting paid next to nothing, in this sketchy building that I have no desire to be in at all. The only reason why I did it was because I was told it was going to count for my internship, and I was only supposed to be there for a couple weeks. I was there for almost 4 months. Every single grueling day of it was hell, and I think the only thing that kept me going was Overwatch. I got to come home and play Overwatch every day, and that's what kept me from losing my mind. Eventually, as time went on, a lot of regulars would come in and I'd give them coffee, and I started to figure out some things. The location I was working at had a really bad reputation because the operator that had been working there before had ran it into the ground, and since he was no longer working there, it was taken over by the guy that I knew, who basically took it over temporarily to keep it afloat until a new operator could be found. And guess who that new operator was supposed to be? They were going to throw me into this hellhole, and I wanted no part of it. I wanted no part of food service whatsoever, and I had been very clear about that from the very beginning. I mean, any operator will tell you that when you compare food service to vending, in food service you work twice as hard for less profit. And the higher-ups that I talked to thought that they were so smart that they could trick me by telling me that, well, technically you make more daily profit when you work in a cafeteria. Sure, I guess that's technically true, but what they don't tell you is that most of that profit is taken up by all the costs that go into operating the cafeteria. So at the end of the day, you don't make nearly as much money as you would working the vending machines. And pretty much every operator that worked in the program knew that, including myself. So I wasn't happy with them trying to trick me, I wasn't happy with my current situation, and then things got even worse. One day, a crazy customer threatened me. Physically threatened me. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had many threats on YouTube before. I mean, heaven forbid you think a certain game sucks. But it's completely different when it's happening in real life by a real person who is right in front of you. I went home from work that day and I thought about everything that had happened for the past 3 years from the moment I walked into that work rehabilitation center. And I realized that I was going nowhere with them at all. That they had brought nothing but trouble into my life from day one. And if I didn't take matters into my own hands, nothing was going to change. That this was going nowhere fast. So I got on the internet and I started to desperately look for any job openings that were near home. And I actually found a Walgreens application available for the Walgreens that was literally 1 minute away from my house. Long story short, I got an interview and I got hired on there. I gave the cafe my 2 weeks notice and they were furious with me. Even though I had been there for 4 months, they told me that my internship hadn't counted. And after being mistreated, mismanaged, and basically lied to, I was ready to sever all ties. They even tried to exempt the internship, and it was too late. The damage had been done. I wanted out of the program. 3 years of calamity with this work rehabilitation program, and it took me 1 week to find a job a minute away from my house, with employees that treated me better and paid me better. And please don't misunderstand what I'm getting at here. I'm not saying that work rehabilitation programs are bad, or even that if you were to get involved with the same people that I did, that it would be bad for you. You might have a much better experience than I did. In fact, I hope that you do. I hope that the people involved with me have learned something. I hope that things get better, because it's hard to find work when you're disabled. It really is. And I should know. I wish I could tell you that I was still working at Walgreens. Unfortunately, that's not how things go. I didn't get fired or anything, but you know, stuff happens. But I loved my time working there. It was a really good job. It was a minute away from my house, which was way better than a 4-hour commute. The customers were great because they were people in my own hometown, people that I knew. The employees treated me with respect and support. I was always treated well. I was always handled well. I was never put in a bad situation. I was trained. I was looked after. And I felt really comfortable there. It was a really good job. But working there has empowered me to know that I am fully capable of finding my own job. And sooner or later, I'm going to find the right job for me. And that's basically been my life for the past year. Well, that and one other thing. I also met my future wife. But that is a story for another day in the life of the legally blind. This is TheKephas. Until next time.